Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 3rd, 2021 episode of Weekly Manga Recap. I am Nick, here alongside Chris. Yes, that is you. Yes, we've got it covered. I'm me, you're you. And
Although, there's something you're forgetting.
And you are Lord Christopher Larios, a.k.a. Mr. Vito in the Bank of Weekly Manga Recap.
Thank you.
How long are you going to make me do that, Chris?
You're my Paul Heyman until I cash this in.
Okay. You're raiding, defending. Except you don't really defend it. You just kind of like it to keep it.
I mean, I defended it as much that no one has stolen it from me. So, burglars haven't broken in and taken it from me. So, in that way, I'm defending it.
The coveted, in inverted commas, WMR 24/7 championship.
Yes. That we lost to a squirrel, and we haven't seen it since. It left, so.
For as long as well as we know, that squirrel's been reigning for 760 days.
Yeah.
Like, we could have gotten another one, but I mean, it was the 24/7 tile, so who cares? So.
I didn't want to stop at KB Toys or Kmart to get a new belt.
It's just like you slapped a sticker on like a wristband. Is like, here's our belt.
I took a hardcore title and slapped a sticker on it. I slapped a sticker on a belt that already looked like shit to begin with, and I'm like, here you go. Hey, before we get to the episodes, we never plug ourselves during the episode ourselves. We wait until like the very end where everyone stops listening. So I wanted to note that I was a guest on 2 podcasts in this past week, and I wanted to plug those out. I was a guest on the Duckface Diaries, which is a World Trigger podcast. We discussed Volume 9 of World Trigger. You can find that on iTunes. It was a great time, very insightful. The hosts are far more intelligent people than I am, so it's a good time. I was also on Humans Hollering at the News. You can find that over at Stitcher. Basically an hour long of us just talking about good old news stories. So go check those out if you're looking to hear more of my voice.
I was busy too, apparently.
Yeah. What were you doing?
Well, the recording actually happened like over a month ago, but Jeff, our friend and occasional guest host, has a podcast called Love It or Wee Bit, and I was on as a guest to talk with he and Annie, they're the 2 hosts of the show, about a Netflix series called Great Pretender, and that went up last night. And we talked for a long time about our various emotions about the series. It was a roller coaster for all of us, it seems. So.
Well, that sounds like a good one. So yeah, go check those out, guys. In fact, you know what? I dislike myself so much that I'm just going to say, just stop listening to this podcast right now and go check. Nick, just
to make sure that you guys go listen to us be clever and funny on other shows.
Yeah. So. Nick, if you want to stop listening right now so you can go check out Duckface Diaries, that'd be fine too. I'll just do it. I'll just stop the recording here so no one has any reason to stick around.
Chris, I can't believe you're still under the impression that I actually listen during this podcast.
Oh, shit.
The times I just inadvertently just interrupt you because I've got a thought to voice and just like, no, just plow ahead without paying any attention to what you were going to say.
In your mind right now, you're playing Super Mario Galaxy. Like you're playing through the game in your own mind right now, and you're just going through the motions. You're just like, fuck it, man. This is what I created a Wii in my mind just so I can play Wii games.
All the times that I get mad at Black Clover, that's actually when I'm on that one star where you've got to jet yourself between the ones so you drink in order to get all the coins.
It's like, why am I so angry? All right, that stupid jet star. All right, yeah, let's actually talk about the manga this week. I thought this was an interesting week. I'm gonna go off and say that
we've got, I guess, a good variety of chapters. I don't know about the full variety because you've read one series that I haven't because Crunchyroll, yay.
Yeah.
At least they changed their reader to not be Flash in time for Flash to not work anymore. But we're going to start things off with My Hero Academia, chapter 299. We are very close to 300 chapters at a point where the series is in kind of a not a lot's happening. It's kind of a low action phase of the story in between story arcs, it seems like. But the chapter title is Like Those Tragic Tales, and it's a Hawks heavy chapter. Checking in on him after the battle and stuff via a flashback to his childhood to kind of fill in some of the details and basically flesh out the stuff that Dobby had implied about where he came from after talking about how he was the son of some villain stuff. And so we see Hawks, or Kago, as he's called, basically being verbally abused by his father out in the sticks somewhere. There's this shack that Hawks lives in with his parents that looks like it's just been cobbled together. There's a lot of bits of sheet metal that make up the walls and stuff. And he's being berated because he apparently snuck into town earlier that day. And so his dad's paranoid that his kid has just, ratted him out to the police. And so the police are going to come after him. But Hawks explains himself by saying that he basically, his spider sense was tingling. His feathers were bothering him, and so he was like, well, I figured something was happening, but the tingling stopped, so then I turned and came home. Nobody saw me, and his dad just like, I don't believe you! I hate you! I hate everyone! He's a very bad dad. Hawks' mom tries to defuse the situation by complaining that the TV has stopped working.
If that was her goal to defuse the situation, I don't know why she thought that would work. She's like, here's the problem that's going on in the house. Like,
So Hawks explains, that like, yeah, his dad killed someone years and years ago, and his mom harbored him, and they ended up having a kid together. So his dad didn't ever really want him, which makes sense. So, but apparently because the guy says that relying on Tomie's quirk was a mistake. So presumably, I would assume that the wings thing actually comes from his dad, and the kind of sense comes from his mom.
Well, she has those like floating eyes, so I think she can control them, and that's what combines wings with controlling appendages, basically. Or what would you call them? Organs? No, feathers aren't organs. Shit on your body.
I managed to actually read through this entire chapter without actually noticing the eyes, which is amazing on my part, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I guess when he says like relying on her quirk was a mistake, it makes me think like, so does she have some sort of presence hiding thing? But no, she does just a good lookout, I guess. So Hawks is kind of left to just like try and endure all of this while he's got his little Endeavor toy. But then one day, Hawks' dad gets arrested, and his mom is kind of at a loss of what to do. She's like, "What? I mean, he's gone now. He just left, and he got caught by Endeavor." And Hawks says to himself that in that moment, fantasy became reality, and heroes were suddenly real to me. And I guess in his mind's eye, the little Endeavor toy just comes to life. I'm assuming this is not what really happens, but I mean, in a world of superpowers that can do literally anything, it could have happened. So they decide that they need to leave because his mom realizes that she could be charged for harboring a fugitive, so they need to get out of there before they're connected to Hawks' father, but they have no idea where to go because they've just, been living on the sticks and relying on whatever money he makes through nefarious means in order to survive. So they're kind of just like on the street, not knowing what to do. And Hawks is telling her like, we should go to the police. And she says, well, we've got to get some money somehow. And she's also being kind of hard on Hawks by being like, why were you born? Why do you have those wings? She clearly doesn't really like his dad.
I was going to say, being a little hard on him is a little underselling that she questions his existence to his face.
Well, we learn later that she was a lot better than this flashback makes her out to be, so. She was a little bit.
Yeah, it's a complicated question.
It's complicated is a good way of putting it, I guess. So, they end up getting approached by some guys in suits, the people who ended up basically putting Hawks in their super awesome program to make a cool superhero out of him and stuff. And they say, yeah, we'll support you and your family. And to which Tomie, Hawks' mom, is like, you mean my family? There's no one else here. I got no one else. So touche. But they say, as part of the support, we'll erase any connection that you have to the name Takami. You can start over. We catch it to the present, where Hawks is driving around in a car with Best Jeanist in Best Jeanist's not Batmobile. And he's not doing so well because, being in the fight with all of Dobby's fire and stuff has damaged his throat. So in order to communicate, he taps stuff out on his cell phone. And he's got some sort of breathing apparatus around his face as well. And Best Jeanist does a thing that's kind of, it's clearly just giving information to the reader because he and Hawks are the only two there. Hawks knows what has happened. He knows what has happened. But at the same time, all the weird stuff that Best Jeanist says, it seems kind of in character for him to just say this stuff randomly. So
for the longest time, I thought Best Jeanist was just a dumb joke character that was, for some reason, they realized they didn't actually establish enough cool heroes. So it was like, all right, I guess he just has to be the number 3 hero because we only made a couple of real ones and then most of the rest were jokes. But in this chapter, I finally see Best Jeanist as this complete fucking dork, this fucking goober who is too busy fucking going off on monologues and making shitty clothes jokes to the point where people just talk over him because they're like, I don't have time for another fucking Gene pun in you right now. I'm talking about my childhood trauma.
Because he's talking about stuff that they already know, and Hawks kind of yes-ands him. He talks about it in a way that is a little bit more natural because Jeanist establishes, without the medical achievements of Central Hospital, you'd still be hovering between this world and the next. For instance, the procedure to induce a death-like state inspired by the Nomu, which I wasn't all too keen to receive. Even now, my body is like worn, distressed denim. And Hawks is just gonna yeah, right, fabric. So, sorry about that, but, I figured that if we didn't go that far, then nothing would work. And it did, so cool. And yeah, that basically just kind of filling in some of the details about what they did, which I am a little bit surprised to know that the body that Hawks delivered actually was Best Jeanist, because they're like, yeah, and they just kind of were preserving you at one of the facilities that they controlled. And it's like, what if they just burned his body?
Yeah. What if fucking Toga was right there and she's just like, oh, I want a shit ton of this dude's blood, and just started stabbing the shit out of him or something like that? You're like,
They make a quick stop because a gang is at work. The Glutton God Gang. All right.
I was mildly amused by this, only because it reminded me of something recently that blew my mind. So I follow the Marvel account. I think just at Marvel on Twitter. Mostly I follow it just because of the movie stuff and things like that get announced there sometimes or reaffirmed there. But every so they'll talk about the comics mostly. And they were doing a poll it's an online poll, you pick who gets to be the next X-Men. And it's a bunch of kind of X-Men side characters. And I looked through the poll and I was like, okay, Polaris is in there. I think Havoc was in there, stuff like that. And then there was a dude. And his name is just... No, it's not dude. No. His name is Strong Guy. And he looks identical to that. I thought it was a joke. I looked it up. I was like, they could not have been so lazy as to just name a dude Strong Guy, and his only power is well, he's a strong guy. And then they were just like, nah. And he has the same stupid haircut as that dude as well.
Yeah, with just the
just the big fomp over, and then he's the big strong dude. This dude has more powers than a strong dude. He actually looks like he can turn into stuff and things. So
a Strong Guy. He showed up in a cameo in the X-Men 90 series. I remember because I had a trading card that had him. So when he showed up in the cartoon, I was like, "That's Strong Guy." So.
I want to be in the writing room. Fuck. It was in the documentary, the Toys That Made Us, they talked to the guy who had to name all the Transformers, and he was like, I had to do it in a day. And I feel like that's what the X fucking Factor pitch goes. And they're like, is someone, she could turn to a wolf. Wolf something. They're like, sir, that's not creative. He's like, Wolf's Bane. They're like, that's good. We'll go with that. All right, we need a name for a strong person. He's like, I have nothing left. Just call him Strong Guy. Just call him fucking Strong Guy and let me go to bed.
They're sleep depriving him.
Yeah,
So it'll work. Oh boy. So it's the Glutton God gang, and they're doing stuff, and so Best Genus essentially just takes them all out without ever getting out of his not the Batmobile, because he just has threads come out of like some cannons in the front to wrap them all up. And when he does this, he tells them, "No more scarfing, Glutton God gang," which is an amazing pun. I have to give credit for that. Then he like steps outside of the car to, I guess, like just be adored by the public. And he's like smoothing his hair over the entire time that he's talking. And he asks the people like, I don't normally have to like, deal with local gangs like this. Where are the police? Where are your local heroes? And one guy's just like, they ain't coming. The cops have got their hands full with the escaped prisoners, and all the criticism lobbed at heroes made them close up shop and skip town. And one guy is like, who needs heroes anyway? And he's got this odd glove thing on, which Best Genus seems to recognize.
I would assume this is one of the heroes who quit after everything that happened and retired, like, because he's just working, it looks like a coffee shop job or something like that. So I assume that's what's going on, but it's not explicit. So
I thought it might be like he's got like one of the support items that the Detnerat group has been hawking.
Maybe that's right.
I'm sure the chat will tell us. So, Best Genus and Hawks continue on their way. They get to Hawks's home, and he says, "Yeah, before I can recover and show my face, there's something I need to confirm." We see that the family name has been changed. It's now Ukai instead of Takami. He goes into the home and he calls for his mom, and she's not there. She's left a note, and the note reads, "I'm sorry. Some horrible men barged into the house and threatened me about our family, so I had to tell them about you and your father. I'm really sorry. I don't want to cause you any more trouble, so I'm leaving. Please be well. I'm very proud of you." So essentially, Dobby's method of finding out all this information was threaten someone that he shouldn't have known about anyway. But I don't know. I guess it's not too difficult to see where Hawks leaves and goes to if he's flying through the air to get there. Maybe he had someone tell him when he visited home or something. So Hawks is just like, yeah, I kind of figured that my mom was the source of where he got that information. Best Genus starts to make a fabric pun. And Hawks is just like, no.
It's the best part where he's just like, oh, like a too tight. No. I'm telling you, my mom just betrayed me. My life is shambles. You're not going to make a fucking skinny jeans joke right now.
But he says, erasing that name, no longer picking up that name, that's actually severed ties between me and my father, and I was fine with that. Not saving her and turning my back on her. Me, a guy who wants to help people. All this just came back to me. It's actually a relief. The Safety Commission is effectively shut down for now, so there's no one around to issue orders. And he takes off his breathing apparatus masks and he says, "I'm free of my shackles." And we get a different flashback to when he and his mom were still living with his dad, and how she actually took him into town and took him into a store. And so he says like, yeah, I was complaining, so she took me out of the house to shut me up. And she bought him the Endeavor toy because it was a lot cheaper than the All Might toys.
Hey, that's a real thing, man. I owned the bad guy from the Pirates of Dark Water, a show I never watched, solely because I think I got it for like $1.50 or something like that at KB Toys, the discount bin. That's where a lot of toys came from. You made work out of it.
I don't remember the show having toys, so
It had at least one.
apparently just the bad guy, none
Yeah.
of the heroes.
I don't know if there were other characters besides the bad guy.
there were the three heroes. There was the girl, and I don't remember what she looked like. There was the main guy who had like dark skin but like blonde hair, and then there was the sword guy who had weird facial hair. That's about all I can remember.
I just had the green.
I saw maybe 3 episodes of that.
I just had the big green pirate who was angry and had spikes coming out of his shoulders. He was a cool dude. He was an intimidating force for all my hodgepodge toys to go up against.
Hawks says that when a person is in a corner, or when they're truly free, that's when they show their true nature. And that's why I think that Bubai Gawara was a decent guy who was just desperate to be helpful. And I feel the same way. So he thinks back to when he was a kid and he used his feathers to save a bunch of people from like a car wreck. Presumably that this is how he got noticed by like the government, was that he didn't listen to disapproving foster dad who told him to die, let him die in a tornado. No, he was like, no, I'm going to use my powers to actually save people because God, that was a stupid element of the plot.
It's weird going back. I remember ruthlessly shitting on Man of Steel's stupidest moments. But if you were to like put a gun to my head right now and you had like made me rank all of the DC movies starting from Man of Steel, like the new DC-verse, Man of Steel might be top 3. There's not a lot of competition.
So he concludes this by saying, even if what Dabi says about the Todoroki family is true, I know things are different now. Best Junius asks him what he's going to do next, and he says, there's a lot for me to clean up, starting with my origin, so to speak. Endeavors in trouble. And while he says this, we get just a close-up on his back, and obviously his wings were burned away in the fight with Dabi, but there seem to be forming these nubs under his jacket. So presumably they are growing back.
Yeah. So I really like this chapter a lot. I really, really like that. I love seeing this insight into Hawks. We kind of had the reveal earlier of like, hey, Hawks has this kind of complicated personality, but he's not a good guy either with Dabi's whole reveal. In fact, he's killed people too, and the bad guy, and he was a criminal, and his dad, was arrested by Endeavor of all things. And then this chapter comes out and reframes so much of Hawks, and particularly his relationship with Endeavor, because you see like, oh, okay, this is a guy who grew up and he idolized Endeavor because he saw him as a superhero. But we also know that Endeavor knows all these things about who Endeavor is still today. Like he has the insight to know that Endeavor is also kind of a shitty human. Like, hey, he's done wrong things. And I like that there's this part of him that's kind of, I don't know, grown up in a way. And he's kind of seen the sides of these characters. And he's like, look, it's just a very complicated kind of story. And I like the direction that it's going. It makes Hawks' admiration into something that was originally just like pure, I bought the toy and the person was cool on TV, into, I don't know, this is a guy who I just found a lot of respect for. And it's just something that I'm very curious to see how this develops.
Yeah, and I guess it does kind of, if there's going to be someone who stands by Endeavor after all this has been revealed, it would be Hawks. And also, it would be the guy who was convinced that Twice is actually a good person deep down. So
there's a lot that's been said recently, and just in general, about what it means to truly kind of like redeem a character in fiction, and how oftentimes the shorthand is like the bad guy punches the other bad guy and then explodes afterwards, because redemption can only be truly acknowledged by death. I know there's a lot of complicated feelings on Endeavor as well, and I don't expect that to change. I do appreciate that it seems like we are going to go down a long road for this. At least that's the way it's looking like, and that's the way I'm hoping. And even as you were kind of mentioning earlier, we see that like his dad was an outright dick, like just full on. His mom was a victim of that circumstance, but also a kind of terrible person as well. And it's just tragic to see like how all those things fall apart. Now Hawks really has nothing in his life that isn't basically being a superhero. That's really all he has at this point. He has no family. He doesn't seem to particularly have a bunch of friends. We've seen no hobbies, no interests. He just cares kind of about being a hero and living up to that idealization he had as a kid. So it really kind of reframes so much of that character for me.
Yeah, when he's the person who tries to put on the air of like, I just want to be able to relax. He does seem to be constantly dedicated to doing this. We may eventually learn that, yeah, he does actually have some friends, but it seems like his entire life is kind of dedicated to what this organization has been telling him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to be making his decisions for himself. So,
yeah, I mean, he was fully prepared to become a bad guy. Like, he was like, yeah, this will probably get me ostracized from everyone in the hero community because I'm going to have to pretend to be, a traitor to everybody. But yeah, I mean, seeing that he's kind of free from that, it makes me a lot more interested to see this character going forward. And I'm really hoping that he gets a recovery, and maybe that also leads to some cool Tokoyami stuff as well.
Maybe. All right. Kaiju number 8, chapter 24. We start off with Vice Captain Hoshina kind of just in his office, still boning up on Kaiju number 8, still trying to figure out what the hell is his deal. And he remarks like, there was something that was about him that was almost human. And also Kaiju number 9 has been going around posing and speaking as a human. What is going on? We then cut up to the roof where Kafka is hanging out. He's reflecting on how Hoshina had expressed, I do have faith in at least 1% of you. And so he gets really determined. He's like, all right, I can't let him down. I've taken the first step. I'm an officer now. So I'm going to keep on working hard from here. But I should go and hit the hay because he told me to. And it's late. He starts to walk off the roof. And comets start falling from the sky as we get a third of the way through the chapter, full color page.
Yeah. Well, if you're reading it through Viz, if you go through Manga Plus, you didn't get it.
Yeah. So. Oh well. These, of course, are the kaiju that we saw at the end of the last chapter. They were being commanded by another humanoid kaiju. They were kind of dragon-looking. An alert immediately goes around the facility. People are waking up. As word arrives that several dozen kaiju have landed on the base, performing some form of aerial raid. And in addition to that, every single one of them is a Honju-class threat. So this is a big deal. And they start immediately wrecking stuff. One of them breathes fire on a building. Hoshina starts going on the radio and issuing commands about what to do. Get the off-duty officers, get people woken up, night watch unit, take these positions, all that kind of stuff. But as he's continuing to pass on word, he realizes there's been no reports of damage outside the base yet, which means they must be targeting the base, which is very unlike, rampaging monsters. Kafka is still up on the roof and is able to, see everything from that position. He observes that these are wyvern-type kaiju. So, all right. A wyvern is a type of dragon. Shut up. So...
Is it really? Now, Nick, where does it fall between a drake, though?
I don't know what a drake is. So.
I feel like a drake is just like a dragon dog, basically. Like, they're just kind of like smaller and they have a different body shape or some shit like that, but I never know.
I know that a wyvern is it has 4 appendages.
It just doesn't have hands, basically. It won't have front arms or legs, whatever you'd call it.
Or its arms are attached to its wings. So he thinks that this is also quite strange, and as he explains to Hoshina over the radio, that there are like only 10 wyvern-type kaiju reported every year, and they always operate solo. But these things are operating as a pack. So as he's about to explain, like, this is what I think, Hoshina has clearly reached the same conclusion, which is there must be some sort of leader pulling the strings, and it must be very powerful in order to make things that normally operate solo operate together. And that's when the humanoid kaiju approaches him, flanked on either side by one of the wyverns, and we get this big full-page spread plus of the thing's face as it kind of grins with two sets of teeth and says, "Target found." And Hoshina does something really cool because he just says, "Gotta go, Kafka. Duty calls." I'm gonna fight this thing.
I gotta go massacre the shit out of this thing.
And then we get the title drop for episode 3 of Kaiju number 8, Raid on Tachikawa Base.
That's gonna confuse you when this gets an anime and it's like
right.
episode 3. You're like, this is episode 7. What's going on? I like this chapter. I will say I kind of get what they're going with Kafka, because it's supposed to be like, well, his time in the cleanup crew has given him his experience. I think it made a lot more sense for him to know the danger of those mushroom kaiju than it did for him to kind of know like the hunting patterns of a creature he would only see when it's dead. I guess the idea he only had to ever clean up one of them at a time. And supposedly someone could have told him that's because these things hunt as a pack or something like that. But it's still one of those ones where I'm like,
be a result of him studying recently, though.
It might be. This was one that didn't feel like as like Kafka's using everything he's learned over the. It's this one was like, oh, okay, I guess you need him to say something smart here, so he seems kind of like intelligent and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it is a thing to continue pushing the idea that Kafka's greatest contribution to the Force is his analytical abilities, due to his familiarity with different types of kaiju. But yes, it does seem like a less unique thing that he could offer, especially because by the end of it, Hoshina like kind of seems to get exactly where he's going before he's finished making his point.
Yeah.
As opposed to when he had to lay out every single detail of his findings from performing the autopsy. So,
yeah, like the other one made sense of like, oh, hey, this is a detail that maybe nobody would have directly have known, but somebody who has an intricate experience cleaning up the bodies would know. Whereas this one felt like anybody who kind of had a knowledge of these things should probably know, like, it'd kind of be like if you were at sea and like 16 sharks showed up, you're like, they don't normally hunt in packs. Is Aquaman here to kill me?
And you make that point, you're like, I'm very smart. And everyone's like, yeah, it is weird that there's a billion sharks here. Yes.
No, everybody stop and acknowledge how smart I was.
You take out your mortarboard.
Look, I have the machine gun, but I'm not going to start firing until everyone acknowledges how smart I was. The shark just jumps out of the water and bites the arm with the machine gun off. And I'm like, well, now see what happened. You've all had to reap what you sow.
You start giving the Samuel L. Jackson speech, but with one arm. We are not gonna die.
I keep doing gesticulating like big arm motions with my now gone arm, like, and the buck stops here. They're like, does it work without the other arm?
Everyone's like, do you get what this guy's talking about? I was like, yeah, I'm just watching to see how long he can go before the blood loss and shock makes him pass out.
They just push me into the water. They're like, he used his body to help us get back to shore. Like, I don't know. All right, let's talk, Nick, about Eden Zero. This is chapter 128, What's Important? And the cover page has Hermit dancing, or I don't know, she's at a music club or something like that. It's a butt shot. It's what you normally have to do. Anyways, so we open with Homura and Rebecca and Shiki and Xenolith and Nameless Girl from Town all riding away because the planet's exploding. And there's about 9 pages of Shiki and different characters like blowing up robots as they're on this motorcycle chase because there wasn't enough content in this chapter to fill out a whole chapter. So after that's done, we cut over to Hermit, who is she's programming the thing. She's going to turn off the the virus that's making everyone evil, basically, all the robots. So she says something to the lights of like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. It's going to take a bit. I might get a little overheated. So Laguna's like, all right, well, if you need cooling, I got you covered. And he's clearly like, I guess, just pushing water onto her. You see steam rising off her. So you get the gist of it. And Weiss is like, hey, wait, why are you modifying the code? I thought you needed me to do that. And she's like, no, I need to do it. And you need to kill me if this makes me go berserk. So that's why you're here. And he's just like, well, what does that say about me? And she says, it says that I trust you. By the way, the idea that she goes berserk is never brought up again. She solves it with no issue whatsoever. The head of Evil Man has little tiny baby robot arms to like push him up to be like, help me. And everyone's like, but no, you're a bad guy. And he's like, but I'm not now. I've learned the error of my ways. And inside the dream world, we see Sister has found Clean's like worst memories, the one I guess that mentally breaks her. And she basically kind of erases the memory for her, which I guess provides her with some level of relief. I don't know how to properly...
This seems like a bandage, like a Band-Aid on a gaping wound kind of solution.
Yeah, but I guess she fixed it because we see Clean in the real world drop a single tear, I guess with all the relief that memory is no longer haunting her. We cut back to the spaceship. Evil Dr. Man's like, humans are trash, help me! And she's like, no, you idiot. You just changed sides. It's not about humans being better than robots or robots being better. It's about us, like, working together. He's like, yes, that's right. Oh, yes, my darling assistant. Please don't kill me. So she picks up the head and she's like, Dr. Mueller. And he's like, And then she's like, I finished scanning your retina. That was the last thing I needed to get through. And then she just, like, kicks the head away. And, that's it. She's like, I have friends, and we see all the characters on the planet as it looks like it's about to explode, but it doesn't explode, and all the robots return back to normal. There is a moment, though, where they kind of showcase that a bunch of robots are dead, including Eggbot. Like, Eggbot's just like a corpse on the ground, and Rebecca's like, so many were lost. I hope that Forrest, bots and humans, can manage to become friends again. And that is the chapter.
No shot of that guy who was made to bark like a dog and then got shot through the heart. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. Hey, what am I just going to give it to everybody? He wasn't really, nobody liked him. Jeff, everyone hated that guy. Creep.
Barry.
Yeah. Fucking idiot. Look, this chapter is fine. I do like the moment of her using like his stupid little comeback as just a way to scan his eyes, and then she does get the big punch of like, never come near me again or whatever. But again, that relationship has been such a hollow, gross one for the most part that like it's not really satisfying to see him get his comeuppance. It's just like oh, thank God it didn't get worse. And I'm also still concerned because after whatever Corinna, whatever her name was, after the fate that befell her, I'm always kind of a little nervous at how Eden Zero is going to go about kind of actually punishing bad guys.
Right.
So, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really feel much satisfaction in this because I didn't really find him to be a character. He was just this being of pure concentrated awfulness distilled into a cartoon character, basically. So like the main drama of the scene is like, will she be able to get this virus? Will she turn evil? Will it get done in time? All of it's kind of contingent upon a plot line. It just hasn't really worked. So,
well, and also if he's just knocked away and she doesn't do anything to permanently solve the problem, that's also an excuse for him to just show up again later. So
yeah, I assume that we might be running into that point. Maybe what happens is Weiss stays behind and just fucking shoots him in the head or something like that.
Weiss would climb the ranks very quickly.
Well, right after that, he'll look at her through an X-ray machine and be like, "Nice ass" or some shit like that. He'll go right back down immediately afterwards.
All right, let's talk about new manga, Chris.
Yes, let's do it.
We'll start off with Elusive Samurai from last week. We get a little bit of a recap of our main characters in this historical-ish story. Ashikaga Takauji, the traitorous warrior, and Hojo Tokiyuki, the heir to the shogunate that is on the run from him. As we begin Chapter 2, Hide from the Demon, 1333. So, he's had a hard day after, his family and people getting slaughtered and running away, so he needs a little bit of rest. Oh, but the mysterious priest Yorishige rather, is creeping on him.
Mm-hmm.
He's being very gross. He's so adorable when he sees it.
It's
that
amusing.
Boy, you stop it.
Well, a lot of people are like, this is very unnerving. I don't know if I can get around it. And it was weird. I guess this is just how desensitized I've got. I was like, I don't know. I'd feel like this is just what Matsui does in his series. There's always just like a creepy, weird character in it. So in my mind, it would be like seeing a Wes Anderson film and being like, I don't like how many long hallway angled shots there are in this with indie music atop of it or whatever.
I don't like that Bill Murray's in this movie.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. I guess at this point, I'm just used to it.
So Yorishige is going to kiss Tokiyuki on the cheek until he, darts away. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So he has evaded again. And we see that the two young-looking warriors who kind of stepped in at the end of the chapter are still there with them.
They do not have names. They do not receive names in this chapter, but they do things.
Along with Yorishige's daughter, or whatever she is. She calls herself his daughter. Anyway, so Tokiyuki is like all business because he says like, "Hey, you said that you would shelter me in your territory, but we've been hiding in this abandoned house for days because we can't get away from the forces hunting around here." The priestess girl says, "Don't worry, in these outfits we look like we belong to a shrine that burned down." And Yorishige says, "Yeah, and I can see slightly into the future. You're not going to die here, so calm down, be patient." But Tokiyuki is kind of restless. He looks outside and he recognizes some of the battle standards that are flying, which are warriors who had sworn fealty to the shogunate and were quick to turn traitor and ravage Kamakura. And he also reflects on the fact that Takauji had seemed so kind to him whenever they were together, but he's been secretly planning this coup for who knows how long. They're still hiding out in the shack, and the other young people in their group start playing Settlers of Catan Risk. I don't know. It's some sort of board game that features a map of Japan and like controlling provinces and using dice to determine how much money you earn, which also it seems very out of place because it's like got like text on the board and stuff like that, so it's clearly like, how does this exist in 1333? But yeah,
I think they made it with fireworks. I think that was around back then.
I mean, it was, yes.
That's the only thing I know. Ancient fucking, that was China though that made it.
Yes.
But they probably launched a couple over the Pacific Ocean.
Very
all right, fucking nailed it. Here you go, fireworks.
I do like how your idea of how Japan got fireworks wasn't like trade or anything like that. It was just like, oh wow, this thing flew. It flew in.
Look at that.
I think this works.
Hey, Marty, did you just launch a fucking crate of fucking smoke bombs across the ocean? He's like, yep.
Yes, the 14th century Japanese man, Marty.
Marty Quinn, I believe, or Quan, whatever that dynasty was. Fuck, I should have stopped. I sounded smart for a little bit.
No, you didn't.
If you ignore the part about fireworks.
But as they're playing this game, Tokiyuki starts to worry because like they don't seem like they're taking this very seriously, and also he's just been remarking upon all these factions that turned on the shogunate so easily. So he's like, I don't really think that these people are actually going to stick beside me. And also, Yorishige is really creepy. So all that. And now he has doubts about Yorishige's word that he could use his evasive abilities and his ability to hide to actually, save the kingdom or whatever. And he goes back to, the old point that was from the beginning of the last chapter, that the way the warriors battle is by doing it head on. They don't play games with each other. So do you really think I can actually take power again by doing this? But at that moment, before Yorishige can answer, they start hearing word from outside about, just like, snatches of conversation. And they talk about how Kunitoki, his Tokiyuki's older half brother, is dead. And one person's like, oh, yeah, I saw it myself. And Tokiyuki starts to freak out. He dashes outside and he's like, that's not true. What are you talking about? And before they can go, hey, that's the prince or whatever, Yorishige says like, oh yeah, he's just an apprentice at my shrine. Tokiyuki is still very upset to learn that, Kunitoki has been killed. And he's like, yeah, he escaped with my uncle, Godain. And it turns out that that guy that he was so sure would have protected his brother, yeah, no, that's the guy who actually turned him in. And why he got killed is that the uncle was looking for some sort of reward, and yeah, they killed him. Cool. And from here, we get some more anachronisms. Like, Godain was hoping that he would essentially take first prize in a pageant for turning in this son of the shogun.
Oh no, they had fireworks pageants back then.
Okay. So he was looking to get a reward for this, but he wasn't very well liked by the people who he turned the son into. So they just were like, "No, go away!"
Like, you're an asshole.
You turned a little kid. Fuck you. Anyway, let's go kill this little kid. How dare you betray a little kid?
Yeah, you're a monster. Ew, get that little kid's decapitated head out of here.
Tokiyuki can't handle the stress of learning that his brother is dead and was slaughtered and had his head chopped off. So he throws up and starts to freak out, and just like everything kind of, all the pressure of the situation kind of like starts to become unbearable all at once. Not knowing if he can trust anyone, even the people that he's with. Yorishige freaks him out by like diving between his legs and just like making a face up at him. And this kind of annoys Tokiyuki into calming down and not panicking anymore. Yay. But then he says like, listen, I told you my divine power lets me see the future, and I see a future in which Godain is sitting, surrounded by enemy soldiers, unable to act. Come, and I will show you how you may win this game. You can avenge your brother and take the first step toward reclaiming your rightful place. And we cut over to Godain, who is just like sitting amid some rubble somewhere, presumably at one of the many, many places that have been ransacked. And he's just like, God damn it, why did I get awards for turning in that small child to have his head chopped off? The world is unfair, I tell you. But he concludes from this that it's probably because Kunitoki was, the child of a concubine, so he wasn't important enough to be worthy of any reward. And he equates this to it not being a good enough roll of the dice for me to get anywhere in this game. There's a lot of game talk throughout this chapter, more so than there was in the first chapter, although there was a bit of it with mention of hide from the demon and stuff like that. But there's a lot of visuals involving boards and dice and stuff like that happen in this chapter. And it makes me wonder if that's just going to be the gimmick going forward for a bunch of parts of this story, or if it's just like the story of how they're dealing with Godain.
Yeah, it might be the latter, but yeah, I definitely see what you're talking about.
So he concludes he needs to get Tokiyuki, and that way he'll get all the recognition and rewards that he deserves. Meanwhile, Tokiyuki and Yorishige and the rest are spying on him from the bushes. And he's like, listen, the moment he decided you were his prey, that greedy fiend became a demon, one who will pursue you to the ends of the earth. And so he gets like reintroduced with these big like movie poster, essentially, where he's made out to basically be almost like a was it Cup Boy? That was what it was, right? That video game.
Cuphead.
Cuphead. Yeah, it was it. I don't play video games. So
You played like
you know,
17 hours of Hades yesterday.
Yeah, but that's different. So shut up, just because you can see my Steam activity.
It wasn't even Steam. I just see you in Discord. I was like, has he stopped?
So, Yorishige says, "We'll defeat the demon who seeks you." And so Godain, as just kind of running around being a weirdo.
He really is.
Making faces at nobody.
He's like shooting out of bushes with his fucking mouth wide open and shit like that.
But he says, "I was born and raised in this area, so I know all the best places to hide." And he just happens to see Tokiyuki out on a cliff looking up at the moon or something like that, looking pretty.
He's like, yes, I know all the best places to hide. The hill with a big rock on it that gets shined upon by the sun. No one will ever look there.
So Godain tries to be like, "Oh, I've been looking for you. I'm so glad you're safe. Come over to me so you'll be safe. I won't betray you and turn you in." But of course, Tokiyuki knows the truth. He immediately confronts his uncle with this information and says, "Why'd you betray my brother?" The warriors that have been traveling with him try to attack Godain from behind, but he senses their attack, blocks them with the scabbard of his katana, and so he's like, so you know of my disloyalty. You placed your allies behind me for an ambush and played the trusting fool splendidly. I never would have expected a child to be so cunning. However, Kunitoki Dono was placed in my care, not merely because of my status as an important retainer, nor because I am your uncle. It was because of my skill as a fighter." And he takes off the top of his robe while he says this and slashes randomly behind him and chops a tree into ribbons. It's pretty cool. Like, yeah, I'm fucking awesome. I'm going to take you in and get a reward. Also, I'm ripped, but also very hungry.
Yeah.
His abs are his pecs are so well defined that they look like ribs, so he actually looks very skinny as a result. So he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill these two breasts. I'm gonna chop off your legs, and I'm gonna drag you in, and then I'm gonna move up in this game." And so we get narration as Tokiyuki draws his sword defensively. The dice are cast. Is this a vicious battle or merely sport? Survival depends upon a game of hide from the demon in these troubled times. What do you think of this chapter, Chris?
I like this chapter quite a bit, but I will say what I like most about this chapter, or I shouldn't say what I like most, but the biggest takeaway I had from it is I feel like next chapter is 100% the make it or break it for this series. Because it looks like we're going to have a showdown. We have to play to this idea of, like, whatever game this is. We have to see what is going to be the accentuated strength of our lead character in some fashion. Is there some kind of intelligent turnabout he's doing? How is this idea of, like, cowardice and running away going to be portrayed as heroic? Like, if there's a really good chapter next week, then I'm going to be really excited. And obviously, we've kind of set ourselves up for it. It's a big one-on-one showdown. But if next week is pretty underwhelming, then that might be the way the whole series goes. Because I still like almost everything about it. Like, I love the art. I love the facial expressions. But it is one of those things where I'm like, will this premise work in the long run? And I think next week is going to be what shows whether it will or not.
Yeah, this chapter didn't really do anything to make me change my thoughts from last week of, I'm interested, but I'm not convinced this is going to be good yet. It feels like this has a lot of the tools to potentially be a really good series, but it hasn't clinched it yet.
Yeah.
And because this is different from a lot of stuff that we tend to see in new series in Shonen Jump, it gives off the air of, like, I don't know exactly how good this is going to be. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of reference points to compare it to. So I do hope that, we get a good manga, because it would be nice to have a good manga that has, a very different feel to it than everything else running in Jump right now. But I'm not holding my breath yet. So
it would be a change of pace as well, to have a veteran come back with a second series that seems to, like, be really strong right out of the gate. So
Yeah, we've definitely had a few that have not worked out. So
Yeah. But speaking about series that may or may not work out, Nick, let's talk about the new series in Shonen Jump this week.
I tell C. I don't know what that title means.
I think it's like it's something with her name, isn't it? But it's like anglicized. It's something with like the way the Japanese thing works, like ow, and then like detective or something like that. I Tashiri or something like that. It's basically like as translated as
I don't know.
Tashiri, something like that. Yeah.
So we get a little bit of a misdirect that happens in this pilot chapter. I could go through this the way the chapter unfolds, or I can tell you what the series actually is from the get-go.
Well, I think we're going to have a pretty lengthy discussion about the series and its premise as is, so we may not need to go through every beat.
So we'll just say what is going on here then, and then talk about it. The premise of the story is that we have this young girl who initially is made out to be a stalker of this popular young actor who seems at first actually to be potentially the protagonist of the series, because he's the first person we see and we experience things from his point of view for a good chunk of this chapter. But it turns out he is actually the villain of the chapter, and she is not a detective, but a detective adjacent who has essentially figured out that he is responsible for a recent murder, and she's stalking him because that's what she does. She stalks down people who are murderers because she has a bizarre form of PTSD and I forget what it's called.
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome, yes. Where because she survived being kidnapped and fell in love with her kidnapper, she now stalks people who are kidnappers and murderers and basically freaks them out until they turn themselves in.
But it's not an act. She legitimately does fall in love with them. It's just her love is a yandere stalker, so creepy and obsessive you want to get away from her love that it tends to make criminals confess. It seems to be the gimmick.
And, you know, as she's pursuing this guy, like, she does something where it seems like she's holding a knife to his throat, but really she's offering him a cold drink, and it just feels like that. She's, you know, figured out every single detail of what he's done. She figured out, like, oh yeah, you committed the murder. You went into some store and you falsified a receipt so that it would look like this other guy had bought the knife so that the police would go after him instead. And she talks about, like, oh yeah, so, you know, the window at the crime scene was broken, but the woman had been stabbed in the back of the head, which means that she was with someone that she trusted, and that so it wasn't breaking into her the way you made it out to be. And she says this all kind of like quasi matter of factly, but also like enthusiastically because she's so obsessed with him. And meanwhile, while this is going on, our two main supporting characters, a pair of actual detectives who are investigating the case, who also happen to be a pair of brothers, are kind of following the same case, but they're well behind her. And the younger brother
it's not that they're behind her so much as she just seems to not have any oversight, which was actually a little bit of a confusing part of how this chapter plays out, because the younger brother, Seikon, Seikon, I think is his name. Ukan and Seikon. He leaves...
Just like that Naruto character, yes.
Yeah. He leaves the initial meeting after hearing about the fangirl that the culprit saw. And then the next time we see him, he has not seemed to have found her, and they have gone off and done something else entirely different. Which made me... I was like, so what did he go out to do? Because he abruptly leaves the conversation when she comes up. And the next time we see him, he's just like getting a coffee or some shit like that. So I was like, I guess she just operates with no oversight whatsoever. So,
It seems to be the case.
and they recognize once they hear that that's the girl he saw, they just give up. They're like, we don't need to do anything more. At least the older brother's like, we don't need to do anything. Yeah. She's got this guy at this point.
And meanwhile, Ukon is informing Sakon about who she is, how she operates, and why she is the way that she is, and stuff like that. And in the end, Sakon is like, I don't approve of this. Because yeah, you got the results, but this is wrong. Like, and at first he's just upset, and his brother's like, "Oh, come on, Sakon, you cracked your first case that you were working." I was like, "Yeah, but she's out of line. This is all clearly illegal stuff."
This case is 100% going to get thrown out when it gets to court, and that's when you see like Phoenix Wright walk into the courtroom, and you're like, "Never mind, this will probably clear." I forgot Japan's legal system is wacky. Once that guy gets involved.
She also has like her own little, not little, it's a very nice room that she has that she operates from. And she's got portraits of all the people that she has stalked into giving themselves up. And she does flat out say like, oh yeah, these are all the people I loved in the past. And this case was just another instance of love falling short yet again. And when he's talking with her, he's like, actually, when I talk with her in this context, she seems like just a nice, charming young lady. And she said, and so he says, I mean, thanks for helping in the arrest. And she's like, no, I didn't help you. I actually was trying to make this guy my blight in white armor. I want them. I want to love them before they end up crushed under the weight of the sinful cross they bear. And Sakon is like, takes his leave from there. He's like, I know I'm new around here, but I have to say one thing. I don't approve of your methods, and I'm going to keep a close eye on you. If you believe you can go about doing things as you did this time, I implore you to reconsider. So it seems as though, as we get narration saying, this is a tale of love, a tale of two detectives of fighting poison with poison. We see the two of them, Sakon and Aioi, back to back. So it looks as though Ukon, the older brother, is going to be more of a major supporting character, and
or he may just be killed early on. I mean,
get Mia'd.
Yeah.
So it seems as though Sakon and Aioi are going to be the main dynamic, the young and naive cop who doesn't agree with fighting fire with fire, and the woman who's just like, I'm going to get me a boyfriend. Yeah, that is our series. It's an odd one, to be sure. I do not know how I feel about it, but I know, Chris, that you have, I think, stronger feelings on it.
So it's going to be tough. So I posted up a tweet where I was like, I feel like this is a gimmick that is just going to be beyond this series to get around. And that was my initial thought when I first read this series, because I'm of two minds. The first is that there is kind of an inherent ugliness in a female character who weaponizes Stockholm syndrome, which is something I've always heard is kind of a somewhat dubious execution when portrayed in media generally. It is odd. She falls in love with all these villains. It feels like you could turn something that is somewhat serious into a joke very easily, and it is even in this chapter. It's also kind of just troubling at points to see it. But there is another side to me that says, I look, selfishly, I want the series to succeed just because I want things to read a Jump that aren't Exorcist battle mangas or mediocre comedies. Like we haven't had a mystery series in Jump in a while. And there are pieces of this I really like. I will fully admit, I did not read anything about this series going into it. I saw the banner on shonenjump.com when I went to read my chapter, saw the two boring detective dudes on the page, so it was legitimately a surprise to me when the stalker girl turned out to be the detective. You got me. My foot was through the door at that point. I'm in it. And I have read the chapter again, and it's kind of lessened my thoughts a little, though I have to always kind of acknowledge whether I'm lessening my thoughts or just becoming more numb to them. But I will say this. I am optimistically going to give this series the benefit of the doubt. exclusively because Undead Unluck also had an awful opening, a very problematic opening, and in a sense kind of turned that around. The elements that were bad there are still there, but it's kind of been reframed and reworked to be something that isn't actively gross every time you kind of see it. And that's my hope here, is that there are ways to like reframe this character and reframe this premise a little bit without taking away, because I'm fine with the idea of yandere detective. I like, detective shows where there's a quirky cop. I mean, that's like, fucking 101 and getting a USA TV show, basically. So like, I'm to the point where I like the premise. I'm curious to see where it goes, but I feel like it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to get a lot better or it's going to get a lot worse. And I don't know which way it's going to go.
I will say that I have one disappointment to express in the chapter, which is when Aoi stops being portrayed in silhouette, because I thought that was a very striking visual. Her grinning face on the dark, featureless face and the hair surrounding it and stuff like that. And then she just looks, much more like normal, attractive young girl instead. So
she has a nice design, though, with something else I also kind of like. I feel like for a series about this, it very easily could have fetishized her a lot more. And thankfully it didn't. But again, it's only chapter 1. So who knows? There's also stuff in here just narratively, as mentioned, that I'm kind of interested to see what happens with the older brother. There are details to the unsolved case that shows there was another victim in the case that Aoi was in, whose name is like hidden. So somebody else she was kidnapped with, that might be relevant. I'm actually kind of intrigued by the series and I want to get invested in it. But I feel like right now I have like one of those polls that like if the series tries to get too close, I'm like, no, we're not getting that close right now. You haven't proven yourself yet. Like I have to like keep it away because I'm just waiting for the series to take a turn in the worst direction or something like that.
Yeah. It's definitely a thing that I think raises some flags for a lot of people. It personally didn't like, I didn't get like an unsettling feeling when I was reading it, but I did get to a certain point. I was like, oh, that could be problematic. So,
yeah. I know there's also some concerns about the fact it's, a cop piece of media, and there's a lot of people who have issues with that. I will totally understand if people have that issue, but I also, at this point, I just don't, like, in the same way I don't expect One Piece to ever, like, talk about real world pirates and the horrible atrocities they commit. I don't expect, police detective genre stuff to, really address that stuff either. It'd be interesting if they did. I just don't expect it to happen.
Right.
Also, I want to know, by the way, one last thought. The actual case itself, the mystery, fucking garbage.
It's very straightforward.
I mean, all the first things in these things usually are, but this was one where I was just like, I don't know how everyone thought this was open or shut. They're just like, a woman sat in front of her window as it was broken into and then sat still while she was murdered and stabbed in the back of the head. And you're just like, no one thought to be like, who was in the house at that time or anything?
Yeah. All the stuff that she says does seem like, if you watch any number of like detective series and stuff like that, that's all very like, oh, I love me some. There was a broken thing, but the glass was outside, and the
yeah. How do you break the glass from the inside or something? Well, the thing that's weird to me, he never explains why he murdered her. There is no explanation for why he committed the crime.
No. And he never has like that, to do another Phoenix Wright thing. He never has that like, yes, it was me freak out or anything like that, because he's too busy freaking out over this weird stalker girl who, I mean, I know the idea is that she's a creepy yandere girl and she creeps him out, but like, I mean, he did kill one girl. Why doesn't he kill her? It does seem like that is going to be the big Achilles heel for her. She's going to come across one, serial killer who's just messed up enough that this behavior doesn't bother him, and then that case just goes unsolved, and she just moves in with him, and that's it. So,
all right, let's talk about Magu-chan, Nick. Let's talk about those cosmic horrors.
Chapter 29. Zonzage of Despair. We see someone holding up an isolation crystal thing, the same kind that trapped Magu, and casting it onto the ground to summon Zonzage of Despair. Then we cut over to the occult, group after school. Ruru is hanging out there with her friends, and Izuma signs his name in the Book of the Destruction Disciples' Blood Oaths. The best friend book, which Uneris finds very, very amusing. And she wants to write her name in it as well because she thinks it's so funny, which Magu doesn't get. She's like, why is it so funny? You will be my best friend, which means that you will follow my orders, So, yay, gotta work. Yay.
You all right?
Yeah.
Don't look to me.
She wants. She starts asking like, "Who is this guy?" Izuma kind of recaps the previous chapter, and he essentially says like, "My gale/an Arctic blizzard, nor any of the other 4 attributes worked against you, so I must come up with a new attack to defeat Magu." And she just like, "Your attack names are really lame." And Izuma's just sorry, I just love his reaction because he's like, they're lame. Had no idea. But Ruru's like, Yuika's just blunt. Don't mind her. So they've got a new member of the occult club. Hooray! Kyo, the tall, awkward girl who's obsessed with occult stuff, comes in, and Ruru's like, "Look, we've got a new member." And she's like, "No. No one would join the occult club. He's just trying to make fun of us. Someone with such a flamboyant dye job would sneer at us. Because nobody with a flamboyant dye job would ever be into nerd stuff, let me tell you. I know that cultures are different, and that tends to be what cool people do, apparently, in Japan, but still. So, she's all depressed, and everyone's like, this is kind of weird. But at that moment, Izuma and Uneris and Magu all sense something on the school grounds. So they rush outside. They notice that a lot of students are acting the same as Kyo, all down and depressed. And immediately Izuma's like, I know who this is. It's him, the rankless being, Zonzage of Despair. And Zonzage is this little sea urchin looking thing, pure black. And he's got one eye. He looks like a Kirby villain, honestly.
I mean, he looks specifically like a sea urchin, so much so I mistake him for there's like a sea urchin Pokemon that this looks identical to. So
So Zonzage doesn't like being out in the open where it's bright and uncomfortable for him. Ruru kind of asks like, "Oh, so he's a god like you, Magu-chan?" And Magu's like, "Nay, he is our brethren, but he is undeserving of the title God. He is a being with no rank." So, gotta establish this because, spoiler, he partners up with a much less important character by the end of this. So.
How dare you!
Izuma doesn't have his sword with him, so he's going to attack this thing with a ruler. Okay? Those things do hurt. So he starts to launch an attack, and Zonzage freaks out and launches out Barbs of Despair in defense. One of them pricks him, and immediately Izuma just kind of like hunches down, and he gets all super depressed, and he's like, my moves were lame the whole time. So, yeah, you're not cool, dude. Sorry. And he's also, realizing like, oh, I'm never going to be strong enough to be Magu. He's just super depressed about everything. So they seem to be in trouble because the one human among them who, can fight, he's down and out. Zonzage tries to run away. They've got to stop him in order to stop, everyone from being depressed and stuff like that. So they start chasing him through the halls. Naputsuku is there too because he heard that there is a free meal at school called school lunch, but I missed it. So he's sad now.
I like the
Ren,
idea he didn't even get, like, I know he did, but in my mind, I like the idea that he didn't get stabbed by Zonga and he was really just that bummed out. He's like, fuck!
I wanted free lunch.
Don't we all?
Ren manages to grab Zonzage in his bare hand, so that doesn't go well. So he just says, "Why am I so mediocre?"
Shit, dude. I like
okay,
that.
Man.
I like fucking Magu-chan dunking on its own like series in this chapter.
And Naputugu joins it because Izuma and Ren and Naputugu all throw a pity party together, and Naputugu's like, "I'll never be able to make a good pudding." So he just wants to cook good, like a weird foodie guy, starfish. So Ruru and Magu keep on chasing after Zonzage. Uneris starts shooting on her camera because she's very helpful in situations like this. And she explains, like, listen, Zonzage can be really annoying, but he's a coward. With every negative emotion he feels, he grows more depressing spines. And because his personality sinks others into a pit of despair, he only gets more depressed. An endless cycle of negativity. The pull of universal desolation, as it were. And Zonzage is just like, oh, everywhere I go, bad things happen. My powers don't help anyone. The world will be better without me. And Ruru tries to take a different approach, which is by being Ruru and offering a hand of friendship and saying, oh, hey, that's not true. Don't say things like that. It's okay. You don't need to be afraid. We can be friends. And Zonzage freaks out because someone is being nice to him. And he's like, it hurts when someone's nice to me. So a needle almost hits Ruru in the eye, which would be very, very bad. But Magu just blocks it with his arm, and he starts to get really pissed off. The barb breaks off in his tentacle, and he's like, how dare you threaten my domain? And he's going to blow him up with his eye lasers to deal with the situation that way. But at that moment, Yuika appears, and she's got a net. And she says, oh, hey, you're the guy who did something to Kyo. Well, this is for her. I'm going to catch me a sea urchin. And she just swings the net, and Zonzage freaks out, casts out a bunch of barbs, saying, don't come any closer. And everyone's freaking out because all the barbs are going to pierce Yuika and make her depressed. And she just goes right through them, breaks through the barbs, catches them in a net. And it turns out Yuika is apparently Davis from season 2 of Digimon. She doesn't have a negative side to feel bad about. She's too big of a young idiot to have any problems that befall middle schoolers. So she just grabs him in her bare hand, doesn't care about all this darker emotions thing, and she's like, you're a little pipsqueak, but you were naughty. And she starts calling him Unisuke. And she says, you might not be as cool as me, but that was impressive. And Zonzage's like, you think my power's impressive? No one's ever told me that before. And everyone's depression starts to lift as Zonzage starts to feel a bit better about himself. So Izuma wants to, take the dark being away from her. And so Yuika taps him on the head with him, and he falls into depression when she does that. And she's just like, ooh, on, off. Which honestly, like, I feel like I would do that too. Just like, oh, you depressed? Happy. Depressed? Happy. So the day is saved by Yuika not having inner turmoil, but Magu says meaningfully to Uneris that it's only been 300 years since Zonzage was sealed away by the Holy Knights. It's hard to believe he resurfaced. And so he says to Uneris, you've been set up, haven't you? And they start to wonder, what could they be after? What turn of events is this? Presumably the Order of Holy Knights is going to intrude upon the story at some point in the future.
Yes.
So.
What did you think about this chapter, Nick? I want to hear your thoughts. It was
actually okay. I like Yuika in this chapter more than I liked her in a lot of her previous appearances. So,
I was really excited at the start of the chapter because it's such an ominous beginning and like the reveal of a new god, the god of despair. And I also kind of do like the bait and switch that, he's the god of despair, but he's actually just very sad himself and just makes others around him sad. So I do like that Zonge, which is what I'm going to call him. I know his name is Zonzage, but it's Zonge in my mind right now, and forever. I like that he has like a happy ending to him. I don't think I just don't give a shit about Eureka, and I don't think this will change it. So probably it was not. Kind of mildly amusing that it was like, yeah, like shitty characters get shitty, less important gods. Like, pretty much. Whatever stupid character they'll reveal for the fucking UFO girl to have. Like, all right, fine, just give one to everybody, basically.
What if Rien gets a god and they just sit around all day getting high?
Oh, it's like a god of what would you call it? Like oh yeah, the god of fat clouds. I was trying to think of like what like the term you would want to use for it, like the god of indulgence or something like that. But yeah, the god of fat fucking clouds is way better. The god of sweet good kush.
The god of Colorado. Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I don't have like a strong hatred of the chapter or anything. I guess I'm intrigued. There was a little bit of disappointment because like, ooh, is Magu-chan gonna get serious? And then it didn't. But then I was like, but it kind of gets a little serious at the end if you squint and turn your head enough, So there's that.
It's kind of hard to get a read on Magu because everything is through this very cutesy lens. So even ominous and upsetting things are, like down to Ruru's mom might not make it home for Christmas. As opposed to the world might be ending. So let's move on then to Dr. Stone. 183, Stone Sanctuary.
Time to get stoned.
The America team of the Kingdom of Science managed to craft diamond. Very, very, very tiny bits of diamond. Which Yo is like, we're gonna be rich. But like, no, you're not. Like, first of all, economy. Second of all, it's not very big. So Nikki brings up, like, I mean, this is way too small to be a battery for the Medusa, so how do we make it bigger? And Senku says, yeah, making large diamonds in a lab is basically impossible, so you've got to go dig up some natural diamonds. And so everyone's like, well, why did we go to all this trouble to make this tiny diamond? And Magma's like, I'm going to kill you, Senku. But Senku says, listen, diamonds are just copper, another type of stone hanging out in the earth. But the moment that people get their hands on those stones, they transform into treasures. He doesn't answer why they need the small diamonds yet. He's being a real tease about this.
Well, get to it. Calm down, everybody over there. Jeez.
Dr. Chelsea, damn it, we were doing so well. She shows up.
She shows up doing a pose that I'm like, I feel like only like OnlyFans producers do. Like one of those poses no natural person ever does, but you kind of do it in a way.
No, I opened my crotch for this shot.
Something like that. I was just like, what would drive someone to pose in that kind of, like, it's almost like a JoJo pose or something like that, except they're usually not dynamic enough to include furniture in JoJo poses, so.
I'm also curious as to how she's actually staying upright given the position of her feet and the way that her knees are bent. Because she's got to get her leg up really high in order to get on this table, but her knee is also bent at a 90-degree angle in order for her to be at the right height in order to have her leg up that high to be on the table.
I can actually answer this question for you, Nick. You see, they have fireworks, and with fireworks, anything is possible.
Let's see if I can... Hang on.
All right. Now, Nick, do you have fireworks on you by chance?
This hurts so much!
Well, you don't have those pliable fucking geologist legs, Nick.
Yeah. Okay, so she directs them to some places where they can go and get some diamonds. There's a lot of text that I didn't read because she's just naming locations and that they can find diamonds. And Senku translates to, I know where to dig if we need a few natural diamonds. Thank you, Senku. So Magma sets off with, I believe, Kinro. He's off in the background. I can't really see him.
Yeah.
And so Senku asks people, pop quiz, which is tougher, lab-made diamonds or natural diamonds? And Taiji's like, it's gotta be natural ones, right? And Chrome's like, nah, it's the ones we know science. And Zeno gets haughty about this, saying, there you have it. The unfounded belief that nature produces higher quality resources than man. How perfectly ironic. He's got this, he must say this 3 times a week or something like that. This is like his dinner party speech that where he's like, swirling a wine glass. Yes, you see, the problem is with society is that everyone assumes that nature produces higher quality resources than man. It's just it must kill at all his big science parties and stuff like that. This is what makes him popular. So, Senku explains, diamond is the hardest substance we know. Only other diamonds can scratch and grind it. Lab-made ones are harder than natural ones by a lot, so we're going to turn the lab-made grains into a rasp, like sandpaper. And at that point, Ryusui catches on. He's like, all right, so we're going to get a big natural diamond, use the smaller lab-made ones to grind it and polish it down to the exact right size and shape to make it into a diamond battery for the Medusa device. And that's why they needed the science diamonds in the last chapter, and that's where they're going to dig for the natural ones. It all makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. That's very well laid out. Joel is like, yeah, I can do that. And Nikki's like, good. And he gets immediately embarrassed because that's his gimmick. He doesn't know how to talk to women. So Senku says, listen, this is going to be the globe-trotting team's last communication to you folks, which freaks out almost everyone who hears it. But Ukiyo says, yeah, on the chance that Stanley's gang is traveling around South America, they're going to be able to detect us if we send a radio transmission. That defeats the purpose of us making this stealth ship. So we get a big, multi-frame 2-page spread of Senku saying, we won't get to talk again until this battle is over. Oh, you can actually send transmissions to us. We just won't be able to respond.
It's a very cool spread too of seeing the faces of the different sort of players at work here.
So they go through all that. Meanwhile, Zeno is up to no good. He's tangling some wire around his weird metal claw things. And Taiji's looking at him like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, don't mind me. My hands tend to fidget when I'm deep in thought.
Oh, I know that feeling too. I like to rip boards out of the ship when that happens.
Oh, that's what all those holes are for.
Yeah, I just break things.
I'm not going to betray you, so don't hurt me, please.
I don't know how to break people, but one day I'm going to learn.
Essentially what he does is he magnetizes his claws by doing this, as he is about to hatch his betrayal scheme thing. Kaseki is looking at, with the Medusa device, and it's like, oh, if Joel figures out how to make these, if he explains it to us, how do we do it? Because they don't have diamonds. So Dr. Chelsea is like, Alexa, which Senku already knew about, so she contributes nothing by pointing this out.
Is that how it's pronounced?
Oh, I guessed.
Let's see. Hold on. Pronunciation. It's something similar to that. Arasha. Okay. That's what I heard.
Arasha. Okay. So it's a place in Brazil where there are veins of ore, and so that's the place that you should go on this continent if you want to get rocks of any kind. And it's also where Senku has been planning to found their super alloy city. So this was what they're a place that they're already going to stop. It just happens that it also coincides with them being able to power the Medusa batteries. Hooray! Gen gets suspicious of something that Xeno's doing. Is like, I suppose you had an inkling that that would be our destination down here. And Xeno's like, oh, I knew he wouldn't overlook the valuable resources he needs. We're both rocket specialists after all. And he tests his magnetized claws by, oh, these screws are laying on this table. Dink, cool. Which Senku notices, it seems. So, we cut over to Stanley's ship, well, the Perseus with Stanley's crew at that moment, and one of them's like, hey, we've got some weird static, maybe they're communicating. And their radar guy is like, yeah, there's some sort of weird signal, man-made noise, but, you know, the pattern is very regular. It can't be naturally occurring. So Stanley immediately concludes it's from Xeno. He's like, okay, but what? I mean, what are we? What is it about? And so Stanley's trying to figure it out. I was like, it could be about radar jamming, stealth ship, anti-radiation missiles. And so someone's like, there's no way they've got anti-radiation missiles. And he's like, not when it comes to Senku. It's possible with his junior science brigade group. And Xeno would not alert us to something pointlessly. When they made their getaway, he made sure to blink at me to tell me where they were going. He actually blinked at him way back then. The goal is Arasha. So Stanley's like, all right, change of course. We're going to call off the hunt. We'll beat them to their final destination. When we cut over to Senku's group again, they have made a quick stop on the shore, and in order to get there, they need a shortcut. So they kind of whip up a rope elevator thing. It says elevator acquired. Not really. Ain't no automation to this elevator, so we get a little bit of a spot on the map where people are. Stanley's group is traveling up the river in order to get there, whereas Senku's group has stopped on the shore of the ocean in order to make their way there by land. And Stanley says, we made it here first. Now when the kitties show up, we'll make Swiss cheese out of them. Okay. But we also check in on Joel, who's like, when I make the diamond battery, we'll have the petrobeam on our side. Senku says getting diamonds for batteries will give us the best chance to get in our fight against Stanley. A Medusa machine gun to turn the tide. The final battle will go down deep in the Amazon at the Stone Sanctuary.
So I'm gonna say one of my favorite, I guess, I don't know if you call it a trope, but like instances of like sequences, that'd be the word to use, in shonen manga is when like a bunch of different people are all about to do things and we instantly kind of cut around to them to very quickly like reaffirm what everyone's doing, what everyone's motivation is, and how they're about to collide together. And this was a great execution of that. We instantly see what Xeno's been doing, how Senku is kind of walking into a trap, how Stanley is there and what he plans to do, how Joel and the other side of the team are working off back over in America. Like, it's all these things kind of leaning up. So I'm actually really excited for this confrontation to happen because I kind of now feel like I know everything that's going on and all the characters that are involved.
I am curious because it seemed as though Senku realized what Xeno was doing, but he just let him keep doing it. So it seems as though, knowing Senku, there's a reason behind that. And I'm wondering what that is and looking forward to the reveal of it. Because if we hadn't gotten just that one shot of his eyes, it would have been like, okay, maybe he does and maybe he doesn't know. But now it's like, no, he definitely knows that Xeno's doing something.
Yeah.
Because he very obviously curled those wires around his metal claws and very obviously tested the magnetism of them. So
yeah. So Senku knows, and he kind of at the same time recognizes the showdown's going to happen. Because otherwise he would have no reason to expect that Stanley was going to be there unless they were just going to wait for him there anyway. I think he kind of is of the idea that there's going to be a fight here. So it's actually, I don't know, man. I'm really actually pretty pumped to see how this all happens. And I'm actually really, like, excited it's taking place in Brazil. I feel like there's not a whole lot of things that happen in shonen manga that involve like any country that isn't like Japan, Germany, or America, basically. So it's kind of cool to have this unique location.
Yeah. And this will also hopefully provide a more satisfying conclusion to the fight with the American Science Kingdom that we didn't really get the first time around. So,
yep, absolutely. All right, Nick, let's move on then to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 48, Mash Burn Dead, and the Lambs to the Slaughter. So, you know how in Rogue Town arc, it's like a big misdirect that like a little girl runs up to Smoker and spills her ice cream and he looks all big and tough and then he's really nice. The exact opposite happens here as the little girl bumps into Order and he's like, bitch, get out my way. He says nothing and just walks straight past her and you're like, fuck you, you animal. The crowd,
the exact same thing that in this chapter, the chapter unfolds the exact same way. Except that there is ice cream dripping off his pants.
That'd be fucking really funny. So yeah, Order shows up to basically confront Mash one last time before the tournament starts. Basically calling him the monster of humanity. Your existence shouldn't be here. You're awful. I hate you. I hope you fail. And Mash is just like, and then he stops and his muscles start talking to him and they're like, he doesn't mean that, Mash. He's like, thanks, Kevin. And you too, Tom, Mike, Mike, Kim, and Yamada. I'll stay strong for you. And I love that Order has no response to it. He's just like, what the fuck is this guy? So Mash goes into the stadium. He's the last one announced for the competition. Everyone, of course, is like, wait, isn't that the guy who can't use magic? Why is he even here? This is bullshit. Boo, go home.
Madness.
Yeah, you should go home. Clap, 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 clap. And everyone's like, that's not a great chant. But they're just like, look, we haven't had the time to like coordinate it. We didn't know he was going to be here. We just went with it. All right. One of the guys, I can't remember which one he is. And I meant to make a note to myself to check it ahead of time, but I can't remember. I'm just going to call him More Tomato because I remember that being a name of a guy. I don't think it's this guy, but I'm going to call him More Tomato until I know it's not. He's just like, why are we even fighting over Divine Visionary if a guy like this could be candidate? You guys sure this isn't a mistake or anything like that? And of course, Finn and Dot are both like, don't be a bully. Mash earned his place to be here. And then Finn's just like, yeah, I don't think I should be here or anything like that, but like Mash really, like, he must be under incredible pressure. He needs to be here. And then he's like, hey, Mash, don't pay it. Mash is just like, I want to go home.
Poor Mash.
Finn's like, I don't blame you. Yeah, it's very sad. So yeah, they're like, hey, we have all 12 candidates here. Here's how the first round is going to work. It's a survival match.
Guy who talks, by the way, the tall guy, is LeBlanc Russell.
LeBlanc Russell. That's not as silly of a name as More Tomato. I only need to keep that note because I believe he's the guy who gets eliminated in the first round in this chapter. So we're introduced to the gimmick for this. It's called the Dettervant's Haunt, and basically it's Dead by Daylight. If you've ever played that game, you have to find a key and escape as a bunch of people try to hunt you down. But the only way to find the key is to use magic to pop a balloon. So we'll be curious to see how Mash uses that gimmick around it. And they're like, yeah, there's 3 Dettervants, basically giant, like, goat-headed butchers that are going to be haunting around the map. And, of course, Finn's just like, that's scary. They all get teleported into it, and they're like, hey, just to, like, so this is going to be kind of real, but kind of not. So, like, these things are going to be hunting you. And the one dude, LeBlanc, I think.
I'd like, before we get to that,
okay.
Everyone, enters the forest, and we get, dramatic entrances from all of them. Some More Tomatoes got stuff swirling around him. Mash is there. Dot is looking bizarrely calm and determined. And then when we see Finn, he's just huddled up next to some boxes, and he's like, ah!
Oh yeah, this is terrifying for poor Finn. I think it's LeBlanc Russell. I may have actually been mistaken because he doesn't.
It is LeBlanc.
Is it LeBlanc? I didn't remember if he had the hat or not. He basically gets caught by a Dettervant immediately, tries to use magic, and then the announcer's like, I should mention, the Dettervants are immune to magic. And then when they hit you, it's game over. You get teleported back to the arena. with soul-splitting pain, that is. And everyone's like, what the fuck? You should have told us that first. And so they're like, cool. There's no hint as to where the key is, so we have to just scramble for the key. This is like a test to see how long we can use magic, or how long we can escape without using magic, because we can. And the announcer's like, yep, this is a test to see how skilled you are without using magic, because you can't use magic to hurt these guys. And
well, without using magic offensively.
Yeah.
So they can use their magic in order to try and keep away from these creatures.
Yeah, but like basically you can't use gravity magic to like weigh it down, or gravity magic or explosive magic to blow it up. They're like, it just won't work. They're immune to magic that way. So you're gonna have to run. It's the how and how well that's being tested. And everyone's like, oh, what a sick thing. Oh man, I can't believe one dude's already eliminated in the first minute. This year's candidates suck. And they're like, yeah, well, last year had rain. There's no comparing it to that. And then Mash runs up and just fucking punches one of the Vanderfonts like right in the stomach, and it just falls over like, oh.
It's the gazelle punch from Ippo.
Yeah, and everyone just goes, whoa. And everyone's like, what the fuck? He just knocked them down in one punch. And Nash is just like, cool, all right, time to find that key. It's somewhere, the moment they explain, they're like, they're immune to magic. Magic can never hurt them. You're like, okay, so Matt's just gonna one up and punch one of these guys, but it's still so satisfying just to see him be like, boom, all right, where's that key?
He just doesn't give a shit.
Yes, no fucks to give for this competition.
Line of the chapter is definitely, I want to go home.
Yeah. You do feel bad for Mash in that moment, but I think still a very good little chapter.
Yeah, nice little start to the Chunin exam. We'll see how things continue to unfold from here. So, all right, Ayakashi Triangle, Chapter 30. Follow Garaku. Matsuri, just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you can just wear one article of clothing and everything's fine.
Nick,
I mean, if you're okay with having denim digging into most of your body, fine. I personally think it shapes a little without, when you go commando. So,
Nick, I believe it is a known thing that women often paint wearing nothing but denim overalls.
Well, that's my ignorance shining through. I apologize to all the female painters of the world who definitely paint while dressed exactly like this. So.
Yeah. They couldn't do that before fireworks, as you know. They needed that crucial attention.
It was an important moment in women's rights.
It revolutionized everything. Like, we can't talk about how important the invention of fireworks was to everything, really. It changed the game.
When that first one went up, women's lips sprang into existence.
People were like, I don't need to wear this fucking bra anymore. Give me that paint bucket. Look at that shit in the sky.
Oh man! See, in order to properly capture the fireworks explosion, you just gotta spray paint everywhere.
Yeah.
So you've got to be wearing as few clothes as possible to capture them.
Yeah, you launch all your shirts into the air with it, because you're like, don't need these anymore.
That's how fireworks work.
Yep.
All right. So before we get that cover page, we get a very foreboding introduction to a creepy looking Ayakashi that's wearing some sort of Oni mask and sort of priest-like garb. And it's just kind of saying to itself as it emerges from what seems to be a ceiling stone, "How dare she, that little girl? I won't rest until I get my revenge. I'll find you and turn your flesh and bones into dust. That damned Ayakashi medium."
Bum, bum, bum.
Anyway, our three idiot heroes are tailing after Garaku as he is walking with very poor posture about his day. And Suzu just asks aloud as they're doing this and in the middle of doing this, "Why are we following Garaku?" And Shirogai's like, "I've got a feeling about him." So, and Matsuri does kind of agree, like, he's been suspicious from the first moment he showed up, so I'm sure that he's up to something when he's not around us. So they follow him around his day, And he's just going around just sketching things. He sketches that one muscular teacher who he did arrange for like a little meeting with him, which is very sweet in a bizarre way. It's like, oh, sure, I'll pose for you. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
He chases after a cat whose balls we see because that's very important to establish that it's a boy cat.
I did almost print out the shot of him saying the artistic qualities of cats is everlasting because I want to make it a t-shirt. I want to like tattoo it to my chest because it's a sentiment I can really get behind.
He has to chase the cat because the cat notices him and is like trying to run away from him. And they're like, I mean, he could just go find another cat to draw. Why is he running after that thing to draw it? And he ends up getting run over by a guy on a bike. But he's like, oh, no. I saw something I otherwise wouldn't have seen. So he climbs up to the top of a freaking tower in order to draw something from up there. Izumi, who I believe is... Oh, God. I believe she's like the principal who showed up that one time when he was introduced. I don't know. But she's like, you're late. You got to hurry. And so there's actually like this entire like display set up for him at what appears to be like an art museum.
Yeah, I'm not.
I can't read that because of the weird text. Yes, it says City Museum. Okay. God, that was hard to read. Sorry. So, there's even like a thing where he's going to be painting stuff live and they're going to like stream it to draw people to the museum. And he's like, oh, this is what amazing time this is. There were people all over the world can see my paintings and stuff. And this just kind of lets the kids know, like, oh, this Garaku guy is actually a very popular artist. A random dude pops in to give trivia to Matsuri about him, and it's completely unwelcome. So yeah, great. So Matsuri's distracted by this, and so Suzu's just kind of left on her own for a little bit. And she happens to spot this one small picture, and because it's so small, it catches her attention, and she approaches it, and it's this tree, which has, like this, I forget what exactly the meaning of it is, but it's like a ceiling rope is tied around it. And when she spots it, suddenly a tear flows down from her eye. And at that moment, Matsuri and Garaku and Shirogane all happen to come over. So she asks, where is this tree that you painted? Because it feels really nostalgic. And Garaku is at first kind of surprised, but then he kind of smiles. And he's like, no, you're just mistaken, Suzu. You're probably just experiencing deja vu. There's no way you know that tree. But he invites her to show her where it is, and it's gone. The sacred tree is gone, and it's just now there's this observatory platform in its place because modernization, tear down everything and put up a platform which we could have probably put 20 feet to the left where there wasn't a very important tree. So, but he says it was cut down at the beginning of the Meiji era. So, and he's like, yeah, lumber was the main source of building materials back then. So, all the woods were cut down at that time. So he says, because they're like, oh, so you didn't paint it while looking at it. It's like, no, I based it on my own distant memory. The sky, sea, and earth. This place was her favorite place. This is him saying it to himself. He's not saying it out loud. Although, wait, yes, he is, because Susan knows what he responds to what he's saying. Never mind. He says, here she was surrounded by flowers, birds, the wind of the moon, all the beauty of nature. And he's about to tell Suzu who it is when suddenly the creepy masked Ayakashi guy shows up right in front of Suzu and goes, found you. And it tries to attack her with a paper fan, but Matsuri protects her, demands to know who this guy is. And the kunai that he took out to deflect the fan disintegrates in his grasp. It just corrodes away instantaneously. And the being introduces itself by saying, all things turn to dust. Fear and respect me, humans, as I command over everything in this world. And Shirogane says, I've heard about this guy. Born from dust, this king of Tsukumogami can make anything decay. Baragon, the second Espada. No, wait. Shirizuka Kaio, the ghost king of dust. And the Ayakashi demands that Matsuri get out of its way because it's only interested in Suzu. I finally found you, Ayakashi Medium. You preached to us to keep peace with humans, yet in the end you sealed me away. I hate you. It won't be enough to just turn you into dust. And Matsuri is confused by what he says, but at that moment, Suzu screams in alarm as Garaku grabs her from behind. And apparently, he has taken her captive in order to turn her in to the Ghost King. So, what's going on?
I don't care.
You don't
It's
care?
the easiest way I can say it. I don't care.
You just don't like it.
I just don't really care about, like, it feels like this is the Shirogane twist, but on a less interesting level. Like, we already know he's really come to care about these crazy kids, so it's just like, I don't know.
Well, it seems to imply that he has a connection to the Ayakashi medium that dwells within Suzu. And so maybe his interest in painting her is actually like he wants to, in some form, be reunited with an old friend or something along those lines.
Maybe.
I do really like, actually, Kaio, this dust Ayakashi. I think he's creepy and he's imposing. So
Yeah. Do we want to talk at all about the panel where you're just like, I don't know why Suzu wore paint instead of pants today, but
her spats are, jeez, like
it was a little bit
of the overalls before, but
it's like someone said.
There's that one thing.
I was gonna say, it's like when Susui was doing We Never Learn. We always talked about like the vacuum like pants thing. It was like somebody was like, we don't have that anymore, and we were like, Ayakashi Triangle was like, don't worry, I got you covered. What about a vacuum everything?
I was worried that there wasn't enough beneath skin tight clothing going on in Shonen Jump.
Oh dear.
I did quite like this chapter, honestly. I thought that the scene of them in the art museum was really cool.
Okay.
I thought that and I really like the painting of the tree, and it really does, when the way Suzu reacts to it is actually pretty cool, I think. So.
All right. Well then, I think we should talk about Black Clover, Nick. Book, page 280, Surging Disaster.
Page,
well,
word, letter,
I don't wear my glasses when I record, so sometimes when the text is really small for the chapter, I have to look up at the top to see where the number there at the top of the page, and then I forget that some series don't refer to themselves by chapter, and I had to remember it off the top of my head, and I was like, it's something related to like a book or something like that. So, I figured it out. Anyway, everyone's going to die. The two devils show up. They're super powerful. They beat the shit out of fucking Jack the Ripper. We cut over a bunch of devils are escaping the hat, like, from the castle, and everyone's like, oh my god. I'm assuming these are like minor devils essentially, because the way we've kind of known devils is they're always that like big imposing figure or whatever, but these are also referred to it. So, got those. Mary Leona's like, oh, I guess the real fight starts now, and the big monster she was fighting got back up. Uh-oh. Anyway.
Yeah, they didn't take down anyone. None of the villains that they beat have actually been beaten. Can you believe that we had an entire month of false finishes?
So it turns out none of them have been defeated. Zeno gets back up. Verica breaks out of her prison. Dante was never beaten at all. And the reason why is because they actually would have been beaten by those attacks, but because the first level has been opened in the gate, it has allowed the devil host to unlock the full 100% power of their devil. So we see them in these 100% forms, and they all basically no-sell their attacks or break out of their prison. And it's like, uh-oh. And I love it because the first fucking thing Dante does is just fucking eviscerate Jack the Ripper. Just fucking launches him across the room and beats the shit out of him. Breaks all of his stupid blades. Like, fuck you, you jobber.
You're not a main character. Get out of here.
Yeah, fuck you. Get out of here, Kumamori. You showed off your Bankai. Now get the fuck out of here. Verica goes up and is just like, "Oh, I can't wait to play with you. Let's dance." That kind of crazy person stuff. And Zeno just basically is just like, "Ah, oh, it's so shame. It's sad actually. Your victory was just a fragile, fleeting dream." We cut over Nature Boy Ric Flair's like, "Shit, they're here. I can't believe we left that situation unchecked. If we don't defeat that guy, if we don't defeat Morris as soon as possible, we're fucked because it's just going to get worse." But there are these two demons there, or devils there, and I don't know what they're going to do. So I have to think, and the best move is, and he stops and thinks about Asta, and he says, "Plumete, die with me, please." So, I guess he's going to do something really extreme here. We cut over. There's like a break as the sky gets dark and something seems to like kind of move from it. And then we start seeing legs pour out and we get a big half 2-page spread, I guess, of this big creature descending from the sky and everyone's screeching, "Oh no, a demon." And the chapter finishes with Asta doing his training with, what was his name? Liev Schreiber. That's it. I don't know if their training's done, but it seems like it's at least progressing. So it's bad times.
I'm wondering how many names you're going to apply to characters in Black Clover.
It's only two so far: Nature Boy Ric Flair and Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, it's going to stay there.
Yeah.
So
until you tell me I got a German name wrong, in which case it will continue. Somebody's like, "It's not Plumade, it's Plumade," or some shit like that. And I'm going to be like, "Cool. So fucking Nature Boy Ric Flair asked Professor Plum if he can die with him," or some shit like that. That's a fan fiction I'm going to write now. Professor Plum X Ric Flair. Write that up. And it's only going to be slightly weirder than Ric Flair X Lacey Evans.
Professor Plum and Nature Boy Ric Flair in the bedroom with the candlestick.
Chapter 1. Ric Flair fucks him with that candlestick until he dies. There's a mystery to be solved.
It starts off as a sexy slash fic, and then it just turns into a game of Clue mystery.
Immediately I get bored writing it. It just turns into something else.
Oh, by the way, here's a question. In the game of Clue, why do you always have to figure out what room it was in? Because, wouldn't the body be there?
Not if I strangle them with a rope. You're never going to know where it was at unless you found the rope still in there, you know? Yeah, the idea that you come to the detective, you're like, "Chief, I figured it out. Shot him with the pistol. It was Colonel Mustard. He shot him with the pistol." They're like, "Yes, but what room?" You're like, I don't know." And they're like, "Detective, your case is falling apart. You're off the force." All right, boys, start all over. Let's get all the suspects back.
I do like big parts of this chapter. The big 2 pages where the 3 Dark Kings get their true superpower forms. All the devils surging out both times that it happens. There's a lot of cool looking stuff in this chapter. And also, I do appreciate that they went to the trouble of saying, "You would have beaten us, except you were too late, because now we can actually unlock all of our power now that these pacts have been sealed." It is something that they've actually been working towards. So when the villain gets their power up, it feels like, okay, this was actually set up. And we saw, this is why they're going to be stronger now. Yeah. When they seemingly have been getting their asses kicked. It's just that they've been, durable and have come back from all the damage that they've taken up to this point. So I like that. Don't like that there was an entire month focusing on all those battles, because that's what Black Clover does. It just has multiple chapters in a row showing different outcomes of fights, and then it turns out that they don't really matter. Before all this, when the Dark Kings showed up, we had all of those lesser guys getting beaten by the members of the Black Bulls. Do you remember anything that happened in any of those fights? Because I don't, because they were all meaningless.
We learned how arrays work, and they've been mentioned offhand, but otherwise not again. Have they been really relevant? I know learning array magic is, I believe, what helped Charlotte master her magic. But we didn't really see arrays in the same way. Maybe that's only something that'll work in the anime, which, by the way, is ending. Question mark? There's going to be an announcement.
It's an announcement.
Well, it's going to end in like an episode, but there's like a special announcement at the end of the episode. So maybe the announcement is it's going to go seasonal or something. Like, no one really knows. So they announced them in basically the same breath. Like, the anime is ending, and then there's going to be an announcement at the end of the last episode to basically say something. Also, we should note there was no World Trigger this month. Ashihara had a bad turn for the health, so you know, we'll hopefully get some again soon. But in the meantime, Ashihara, rest easy.
Yes, please get better.
Yep.
All right, yeah, that was Black Clover. Yes.
All right, let's wrap it up, Nick.
One Piece, chapter 1002. Gonna have to get used to saying 1,000 every week. Huh?
It's weird. Like, I looked at the number and I was like, why does that look wrong? And I'm like, oh, right. Because this monolith will continue to run long past the point where my body is feeding the worms of the ground.
Why is there a 0 in the 100 space? That seems wrong.
Yeah, somebody should tell Oda he made a mistake.
I think it'll actually be kind of a relief in 2 years when we get to chapter 1100, and then it's like, finally. Yeah. So, chapter 1002, 4 Emperors versus New Generation. Oh man, Chris, going up against the New Generation. Mad Mountain Rock or whatever is going to show up with his guitar, and Mantar is going to be there, and the Goon. How are they going to deal with the 4 Emperors?
I know these characters from Breast. Were they a faction called New Generation? It was just a bunch of idiots.
WWF in 93 or 4 rebranded itself saying this is the new generation because all of their actual stars from the 80s had decided to go to WCW and get paid better. So they were like, the WWF is new. It's not old like all those people who went to WCW like Hogan and Savage.
This was their ruthless aggression where they're like, we need to rebrand a group of superstars. And we're like, we got John Cena. And then everyone else is like, what about anyone else? You're like, Tyson Tomko was relevant for a hot minute, I think.
We've got Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Aldo Montoya, the Portuguese man of war.
I think we still have the bodysuit the Great Gonzalez used. He's gone, but the bodysuit's still around. All we need is some other 6'10" guy to wear it.
The fight between Kaido and Big Mom and the 5 members of the Supernovas continues, and it's mostly just more kick-ass action that happens in this. Kaido launches out his blades of wind that he did before to cut off Kiku's arm. It seems to completely wreck Kid's metal mecha thing. Law sees it coming and is just like, I'm leaving now, and he pops away with his teleportation powers. But Kid's fine because he's like, all that was just scrap metal to begin with. I'm just going to get it all back now.
He's like, I magnetize shit. You can cut it up as much as you want. I literally just magnet it back together.
Zoro gets the best reaction, though, because he sees it coming, the blade of wind, and he just deflects it with one of his swords, and it cuts up a rock behind him, and he just stares, looking mad afterwards. Luffy punches the hell out of Kaido's face, and then as Kaido's flying through the air, Kid, immediately recovering, grabs his descending head between his metal hands and uses Slam Gibson, which is basically a pile driver, to just throw his dragon head into the ground.
It's like, I love that he gave a name to a fucking attack that just fucking pile drives a dude afterwards.
Actually, I should clarify. He grabs him by the head and then slams him, so I guess technically he is actually doing a suplex or a falcon arrow or something like that. It's a little hard to tell because he's belly up at the start of the slam and then belly up at the end of the slam. So I guess that's a falcon arrow. Anyway, wrestling. So, Zoro tries to cut up Kaido some more, and he, I don't know, cuts his mustache or something. It doesn't seem to go very well. I think he's just dodging when Kaido tries to eat him. Then Law's like, I've never seen an anatomical chart of a dragon, but I'd guess the heart is about here. And he does something to send what looks like a jolt of electricity through Kaido's heart. which afterwards...
He uses Gamma Knife, which is a technique we have seen before, but I forget what it does because I just don't care about law that much.
Kaido goes from one panel going, "Oh!" to the next panel going, "Enough of this shit!"
Fuck you guys! Dickheads!
So he's like, "All right, so you know how tough my defense is. It seems you're not just mindless fools relying on guts to win." And Luffy's like, "Huh?" Killer tries to pierce Kaido's hide. He like climbs up his body with his hook swords. And then he's like, these scales have been causing us trouble, so I just need to cut past them to the inside. And he does this swirling scythe attack with them, and his blades just phase through Kaido's body. I don't know what Kaido does, Chris.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what Killer does. This is the first we've really seen Killer in action. I assume this is what he meant by those pulverizers or punishers. I can't remember what he called his gauntlet things before. But I don't know if this is a sonic. I mean, it's called Scyther Sonic, so you'd presume that it's maybe like a sonic attack. But at the same time, I also don't know if this is like a metaphysical attack, sort of like Zoro having the Ashura show up in his fight against Kaku. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to be something like that where he's physically extending these blades, but they're not real, but they still, like, I don't exactly know what he's doing, but I think that's the intriguing part. We don't know what Killer does quite yet, so this is something to be like, ooh, what is Scyther Sonic or whatever? Also, is Scyther an actual word or just a Pokemon?
I feel like it's just the Pokemon.
Interesting. Copyright. Oh no. Oda, he's getting taken down.
So Kaido's taken a few hits at this point, and finally Big Mom's like, "I'm here too!" and just shoots lightning right at Killer as he's on Kaido's back. And she has this really cool little panel where she's, got Prometheus in one hand, her sword in the other. She's posing on Zeus as lightning surges around her, and she says, "As long as you're under the open sky, there is no escape for you." It's like, that's pretty badass. Awesome. She controls everything that is around them. Kaido tries to eat Killer, but Luffy's up there, and he kicks Kaido in the head. Kaido tries to unleash a fire breath at him, and so Zoro shouts over to Law, "Hey, shoot me up there, Trappy." And Law's just like, "Fuck all of you guys, stop telling me what to do." So he teleports Zoro up into the air so that he can use his Flame Rend, a technique to protect Luffy. And then Zoro starts to use the Enma blade. He's going to slash Kaido, and Big Mom shouts out a warning saying, "That's no ordinary sword." So Zoro slashes with his sword, and it cuts one of the horns of the mountain base thing off with the force of it. And Kaido's immediately like, "Oh man, that katana has the presence of Odin within it." And as Zoro's falling from the earth, he's just like, "I missed, damn it!" So he gets struck with lightning too. Big Mom laughs, and she's like, "There's nowhere to escape. God of lightning, Tenjin!" And lightning surges around everywhere, striking the ground, striking Luffy. Kid is able to block with some of his scrap heaps, but then the lightning kind of goes around his arms and zaps him anyway, it looks like. So everyone takes some hits from the lightning, it seems. But Luffy, of course, is fine. And Big Mom's like, "The lightning didn't work on you." And he's like, "I'm rubber."
Like, well, shit. I guess he is.
And he proclaims, "You're going to pay for what you did to them." As Big Mom's kind of freaked out because, one of her heavy hitters is just not going to work on this boy. But Kaido's there, and he does get to use his blast breath without interference this time and blasts Luffy. He takes a big hit, but not as big a hit as you would think. He's like, "What, my flame doesn't work either? Why not?" And Luffy says, "Guts!"
Hits him with Kong Gatling, then like, "Fuck, what the hell?"
And that's the chapter. This fight's awesome.
This fight's so fucking dope. Like, I feel like I can call it already. Like, no, we don't need to do best fight of the year. We already know it's gonna be this fucking Luffy, fucking Kaido big fight up top. But it's so cool, and there's a lot of like cool little details that really make it interesting. Again, like, oh, this is our first chance of really seeing like Killer in action, and Law got to use Gamma Knife, but he doesn't really know where Kaido's heart is, so maybe that'd be even stronger if he knows exactly where that is. And we see Big Mom is changing the whole way the fight works because she's summoning these, lightning bolts in the skies and things like that. So, it's pretty cool. Also, people pointed out that like a chapter earlier, Kaido was just like, you are not young fools who rely only on guts. And then the end of the chapter is going to be like, fuck you, guts! Boom, 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 boom. Like fucking going after him. So I do like this fight a lot. This is such a cool chapter.
Yeah. I don't have much commentary to offer on this because it was just really cool, and it's nice to see as well the 5 different members of the Supernovas all fighting in very different ways, demonstrating their abilities in different ways, but all managing to demonstrate how strong they are in the face of these 2 nearly godlike beings. They're still pushing them and making them nervous because they're way stronger than anticipated. So,
yeah.
All right. And that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We, like you said before, unfortunately, we have no World Trigger to talk about. So that is going to do it. What were our favorites, though? Favorite series and MVP?
My MVP, or my character, sorry, my series of the week is One Piece. And then my character of the week is Hawks. I think both of those just had like such standout kind of things that I couldn't consider really giving anything else the award for it. I enjoyed One Piece the most, and I thought Hawks was the coolest character. It showed like kind of came off the best after this week.
I do want to give a little bit of praise to Ayakashi Triangle and to Dr. Stone. I thought that they had pretty cool chapters in terms of doing the different things that they did. But yeah, for me, there's no contest. One Piece was just too good this week. It's just too exciting and cool. And it's nice to have one of these fights in One Piece again. We're just like, yeah, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
And I really, really want this to just keep on going like this. So
it's weirdly easy to follow the action. Like, it's probably my favorite thing about Oda is like, I feel like I can tell exactly how characters are moving, and he does very well at having multiple factors going on in a fight, never kind of making it. Like, it feels like most fights are one-on-one matches, and Oda is doing like a fucking like 8-on-8 tornado tag, and I'm still just like, yeah, this is fucking awesome.
When everything flows together and you can follow the action, you can make things really complicated, but convey them in a way that is easy to follow and exciting. If you just, yeah. And it's been that way so far. And I'm going to complete the echo of your naming by also saying Hawks this week. I feel like he was the one singular character this week who had a big stand-up moment and carried the chapter that he was in very well. It seems like we learned some about him, not necessarily in terms of exactly just the events in his life, but more getting a full grasp of why his personality and his viewpoints are the way that they are. And that was appreciated. And it's also reassuring to know that a character that was complicated but relatable is going to stick around and keep on doing important stuff. So
yeah, the audience agreed. Hawks was their MVP as well. Their chapter of the week, surprisingly, was Magu-chan, God of Destruction. So there you go. Every so often, they come up with something, a real surprise. So
yeah, every so often our audience is wrong.
I was gonna say that, but I have to hold my words back. I am a man in the position of power, so you have to choose your words carefully. You don't want, it's how you get.
When you're Mr. Beat over the bank, you've got to make sure that when you're throwing Brock parties every week, you've got to make sure that you make as few enemies as possible.
Exactly. Nick, once you get one of these, you understand the responsibility that comes with it. I'm sure you'll understand someday, although it'll be difficult, because I am the reigning and defending Vito and the Big Champion.
Also, I'm going to be too lazy to make one like that if I do win in future. So. I didn't actually get to show you because my webcam didn't work at the time. The quote unquote briefcase I was going to have. It was just my microphone case with the index cards taped.
Oh yeah, well, that was going to be what this was if I hadn't found somebody who was willing to help me make a better version.
Right. Okay. That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us. We record the show live here on twitch.tv/ReloT Wednesday evening starting around 7:30-ish Eastern Time. You can also find our old episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, and you can join us on Discord. The WMR Discord server has a wonderful community. We have all sorts of great discussions that take place on there, and that is also where you can find the Google Doc that is maintained by Ninja X3i, which keeps track of MVP and favorite series, all the recommendations that we are working on, including our current one, Hina Change, which we should probably talk about next week, but we'll see about that. Yeah, all sorts of valuable information can be found on there, and that is also a place where you can put down your vote for MVP or Series of the Week.
Yes.
All right. Also extend special thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Your support allows great bonus content for you guys to enjoy. To Steve Mann, our tire artist, whose artwork can be found anywhere boobs are allowed to be drawn, and to Wensleydale Cheddar and Milo Jack Stillitz for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap.
All right, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. I hope everybody had fun. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. We're gonna head out of here, guys. Although I guess, really, when you think about it, it is important that we kind of recognize the world we live in and how important it is to see how technologically we have gotten there. This stream would not be possible. We thank a lot of people. The one person I believe we still have yet to thank is Fireworks, because without Fireworks, there would be no Twitch streams, no electricity. No communication.
Whenever you cheer someone on Twitch, that's basically fireworks going off. So yeah.
Yep. So be thankful, guys, because without fireworks, we wouldn't be here today. We'd still be fucking cave people bouncing sticks and bones off of walls and shit like that. Which they didn't have fireworks, I believe. But I'm not 100% positive on that fact, so I'm worried about stating it out loud. All right, that's going to do it. Bye.